In this movie, we'll be working with field blur, and with field blur, we'll look at how we can add multiple fields in order to blur out different areas of our photograph. And then we'll explore how we can save out a selection using a channel mask and how we can use that selection in order to sharpen the non-blurry or the sharp areas of our photograph. All right, well, in order to work with this technique, let's go ahead and copy the background layer, press Command-J on a Mac or Control-J on Windows, and let's name this new layer Blur. Next, we'll navigate to the Filter pull-down menu. Here, select Blur, and then we're going to choose Field Blur. This will launch our image in the Field Blur dialog. Now, what I want to do is crank up my blur amount here, and I'm going to bring this up really high. I'm going to go ahead and set this point over here on the left of the image. I'm going to then create another blur field area by clicking on this area. I'll make this one a little bit less. I'll make another one here, a little bit less there as well. This one over here, I'll crank up. And again, I'm just going to click through the image, applying different field blur amounts. Now, when I get to the sun in the background here, I'm going to remove the blur. I want that to be sharp. And I want this area up here to be blurry, and this area as well. Well, next I want to bring in some focus on a few of the subjects. If we click on one of the subjects of this photograph, in this case my brother-in-law Ryan here, we can bring him into focus by adding a field blur and by changing the blur amount to 0. Now let's also bring cute little Maggie into focus. We'll add a field blur and reduce the blur amount there. I'm going to bring into focus my sister Amanda. My sister is awesome. She's an amazing person. I also want to bring into focus Stuart over here as well. So again, just click to add a field blurred area. And so now we have all of these different areas of focus. What can be fun about having different areas of focus is we can just create a different look in our photograph. Here I'll push these around a little bit in order to bring in different areas which are in focus or out of focus. All right, well, now that we have those, let's press the H key in order to hide all of that, and then click on the preview checkbox to see the before, and then now the after. Well, here we have a pretty stylized look with this photograph, and we have different amounts of blur. Notice that we have an amount of blur up here, which is 15, which is different than the amount of blur that we have here, which is 24. And by having different amount of blurs, I brought that down to 18 to just take that back a little bit. Well, what it allows us to do is to have different intensity of the blur effect being applied in different areas. Now, where this gets interesting is when we want to say save out all of our selections to a mask as a channel mask. So let's click on this checkbox here. We've seen how we can do this before, yet not with this complicated of a selection. So after having created the blur by adding a number of different field blurs to our image, we'll click on the checkbox to save the mask to channels and then click OK. Now in doing this, when we click OK, it will apply the effect and bring us back to the file here in Photoshop, and we can see we have the blur layer. Here's the before, and then here's the after. Well, what you want to do next is copy the blur layer. So click and drag this to the new layer icon. We're going to name this new layer Sharpen. And we'll name this new layer Sharpen because I just want to sharpen the area that isn't blurry in the image. In order to do that, we're going to take advantage of the channel mask. So click into the channels panel, and here you can see we have this blur mask. Now, if we click to turn this mask on, you can see that we have different degrees of intensity of our selection. Command or Control click on that mask, and then turn the visibility of that off, and navigate back to the Layers panel. Now back here in the Layers panel, we want to add a layer mask to this layer. To do so, click on the Add Layer Mask icon. Now here, when we turn off the visibility of the other layers, we'll see that this mask is the exact opposite of what we want. So we need to invert the mask. To invert a mask, press Command-I on a Mac or Control-I on Windows. Now we're just seeing the non-blurry areas of this picture. If we Option or Alt-click on the mask, you can see how this works. Well, the white area, that's the area where the image is sharp and in focus. Now the darker gray areas are where we have the blur effect applied. Where it's darker or even close to black, we have the blur effect applied with more intensity. Where it's gray, that's a little bit less blur. Next, Option or Alt-click on this mask, so it will bring us back to the photograph. Well, here, what I want to do is click into the image layer, and I just want to sharpen this area. To do that, we'll navigate to our Filter pull-down menu, select Sharpen, and then choose Smart Sharpen. When we click on Smart Sharpen, it will open our image up in the Smart Sharpen dialog. Here we can see this photograph. What you want to do is click and pan around so you can see the image. If the preview is too small, you can always change that by clicking and dragging on the corner in order to see more of the image. Now, this sharpening amount's too high, and the radius is a little too high as well, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce those values. Then what you want to do is click and hold on the image to see the before, let go to see the after. On my screen, I'm seeing some really nice, subtle sharpening. If we zoom in on an area, you might be able to see this better. Here's before, let go, and then there you can see the after. Again, just a little bit of a snap, a little bit more of a sharpening effect. Next, we'll click OK. And when we click OK, this filter will apply the sharpening just to the area of the image where we can see here because the mask is concealing the rest of the photograph. Well, in order to finish this project off, we obviously want both layers turned on so that we can have the blur layer nice and soft, and then we can have this sharp layer bring in some sharpness just into this area of the photograph. And in this way, we're able to take advantage of that channel mask to really help and improve this image and to help and improve the image in a selective or specific way, and that is to sharpen just the non-blurry areas of the photograph.